Hello, welcome to Lipedema Link. I'm your host, Donnellen Ray, and today we're going to talk about fitness as it relates to lipedema with my special guest, Pattie Cornute. But first, let's say hello to my co-host, Phil.
Hey, how's it going? This is something that we haven't talked about yet.
No.
Fitness is very, very important for women who have lipedema. So I'm excited to meet our guest today.
Yes, and this lady has, you wouldn't believe, CrossFit and triathlons, and she's done it all. So she is a real good resource of information for this. So we welcome Pattie Cornute. Pattie, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, and I don't know if you just heard me and Phil, but I'm just, we're going to get into your story a little bit here, and I'm just amazed at, your history and what you've done and where you've taken this as it relates to fitness for lipedema. And so let's start with just, talking a little bit about your history and about your diagnosis and your how you kind of went to, like I said, to the triathlons and the CrossFit and all of that wonderful stuff. So,
Certainly. I was always somebody who was active in my life and always somebody who was larger in my life. And I didn't get diagnosed until 2007. So
okay.
I think I was about 38 when I finally got diagnosed. I had had my daughter in 2004 via a C-section. And almost immediately after I got home from that is when I noticed that my leg shape drastically changed. And I had
Mm,
that, cuffing that we all
yeah.
tend to get as we progress. And I was going to my doctor and asking all kinds of questions and what's going on. And, I, they couldn't give me any answers. And they
That's what I was
immediately,
wondering.
yeah, they immediately started doing things like, checking for deep vein thrombosis
Mm,
issues from post pregnancy and checking my heart and scaring the heck out of me and my husband. And it would be 3 years until I would find somebody who had said the word lipedema.
I
And it
was
happened to
wondering.
be, yeah, it happened to be just Googling on, Google, looking up
Yeah,
big legs and images. And
really. So, because you said
yeah,
2007, right? So I was wondering. That was going in my head as soon as you were saying. I'm like, wow, we have a hard time getting maybe some diagnosis now and having a kind of an awareness in the medical community. I can only imagine 2007. So it took you 3 years in good old, whatever WebMD or whatever it was.
Man, we didn't even have super high speed internet then, so she was suffering.
yeah, it was another patient blogging about her experience with lipedema.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it was amazing. And I was like, when the leg picture came up, I was like, honey, you've got to come see these legs. It looks just like my legs.
Yeah.
And
Ta-da. There I am. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And he was like, what is this? And we just started reading like word for word. And it was Patricia Washburn. She had a great blog, very
Mm.
detailed, and gave you all sorts of links to go. And we clicked on everything and we printed everything. And it was probably about a ream of paper that we ended up with. Started to go to my doctor and ask questions about it. And of course, still didn't know anything about it.
Wow.
So one of the links that she had talked about was seeking out trained physical therapists who would have lymphedema experience. So a CLT, certified lymphedema therapist.
Okay.
And I found VODR training was one of the training modalities that they use. And they had this find a therapist near me kind of thing. And I
No.
plugged in my address, found somebody, and within minutes, she was like, you're late stage 3. And because it took so long, you also have lymphedema. So they call it lipolymphedema.
Wow. So you got the double whammy,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So then where did you go with it from there?
Initially, we were told, very moderate therapies that they could help us with,
Yeah.
pretty much lymphedema based.
Mm-hmm.
So wrapping, what was it? Decongestive therapy is the main treatment that you get. They try to get as much fluid off your legs as
Mm-hmm.
possible with MLD, manual lymphatic drainage, bandaging, um, all of those. Keep your legs elevated, stay out of the sun.
Mm.
We were told exercise could make us worse.
Yeah, for an active person, because you said you were so active all your life.
Wait,
So,
hold up. How?
well,
I don't know if they thought it was like, um, causing more swelling because
mm-hmm.
the lymphatics were kind of being blocked by the tissue. I didn't understand it, but I listened because I was so scared that I was going to make this condition worse.
Yeah, sure.
And that's probably my biggest regret, that I waited as long as I did before I finally looked at my husband and said, we've got to do something. What's the workout of the day?
Yeah, yeah. And your husband is a trainer, and I realize for those that may not be familiar with your background, but your husband is a trainer. So this exercising is kind of what that was your. That's how you first tackled it. Was after the I guess you did the compression or the bandaging and stuff, and then you tackled it with exercise.
Yeah, so I did all the therapy that was recommended. Anything they told me to do, I listened. So I
Mm-hmm.
elevated, I stayed out of the sun. I progressively got worse to the point where I lost all my mobility. I mean, could barely stand
Yeah,
for a few minutes.
yeah.
And I was so scared I wasn't going to be able to be here. I was already not being part of my family. We had a young child and my
Mm,
husband's lives,
mm,
and I hate being afraid. And so I was just over it. I'm like, you know what? I was active before. I don't understand how this can make this worse. And
mm-hmm.
I'm already worse. So we've got to try something. And he asked me what my goal was with wanting to start being active again. And at the time, we were seeing lots of people in our community talking about falling and then not being able to get up on their own.
Oh, yes, I've seen that a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that just broke me. And I was in groups where people were having to call the fire department, and
Oh,
it's just heartbreaking to think about that. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to do whatever I could. And he said we can do that. And he is not only a certified CrossFit instructor, he also is a martial artist. He's very athletic, has been
mm-hmm.
his whole entire life, and so he understands the body and ways of modifying. Because if you hear, hey, let's go do CrossFit, and you can't really stand up, you're
Right,
trying to understand, how is that even possible?
right.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so very modified. And there's like this warm up that CrossFit has. It's their standard regular warm up. It's 3 rounds of sit ups, 10 push ups, 10 pull ups, 10 squats, 10 Samson stretch, things like that. And you do 3 rounds of that. And when I first started, my goal with him was to do 1 round of 10 each. And my push ups were standing against the kitchen sink. My pull
Yeah.
ups were also standing against the
Yeah.
kitchen sink. I did sit ups on a big yoga ball, so very modified for what my abilities were at the time.
Well, yeah, because like you
And
said, I mean, if you couldn't get up out of the floor, what's the likelihood you want to get down there every day to try to do it? Sure.
right. And it took a while for me to be able to even get on the floor to then work towards getting off the floor.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah, it's big when you think about that, and it's overwhelming when you're in that place,
Mm-hmm.
and you're thinking, I don't have any options.
Yeah,
But
and you're just not
even
even a part
doing
of your own life anymore. I mean, just in a full spectrum. I mean, you want to be able to take care of your kids, and you want to be able to participate in your marriage, and so yeah, you had to do something to try to go and just make yourself feel like you were trying to do something to better it.
yeah, and immediately in doing that, even though it was so modified, and it was amazing emotionally what it gave me,
Mm.
because I felt like I wasn't a victim, that I could do something and I could take action against lipedema and what it was doing to my body.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Patty, did that hurt when you were doing CrossFit? Because I mean, I just look at some of them things and I'm like, man, I don't know, I can't do it. But with lipedema, you're already in some forward pain. How did that feel the first time you started doing CrossFit?
Yeah. Well, the modifications were great. So, like doing the stand up versions, supported on my kitchen sink, like those push-ups and pull-ups. Obviously, I didn't have a lot of strength at that time because I hadn't been doing anything. So that slowly got better, and having to develop the awareness of, is this pain from muscle soreness or is
Mm.
this lipedema pain?
Yeah. Yeah. That would make you question that.
Yep. And so seeing how I recovered was a big part of that.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
then being able to say, if it's something that's lipedema pain that doesn't feel like it's a sore muscle, I'm not going to do that movement anymore.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
And then the most painful was eventually when we started to try to get on the ground.
Mm.
So we use cushions from the couch to
Mm-hmm.
put on the floor
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And again, modifying every part of that little movement that is huge for so many of us. You say getting on the floor, and most people are going to say, nope.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's first thing. Yep. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Yep.
Because even just even if you can physically get down there, like you were saying, it takes time. It's painful, and then you're sitting there, and what happens when you if you can't get back up? And
Hmm.
when you have mobility issues to begin with, not happening. Not going to do it.
Yeah. We used the couch for support to help stand up. And then it was very gradual as the training went on. We trained in the dojo where he teaches karate as well,
Mm-hmm.
and they have mats on the floor.
Okay.
And then they had like stacks of mats that we could kind of fold and use that like as an elevation, and it's soft,
Oh, good.
so just gradually things like that. And for a long time I was doing my sit-ups. It was like a whole big stack of mats off in the corner, and I would sit on those and do my sit-ups that way. And you can do push-ups against the walls, you can do pull-ups on the door frames, like laying down and kind of pulling your body along the floor that way. So many varied movements that you can do. And he's just a genius as far as looking at
Yeah.
anybody, and whether it's an injury or just ability that you have, looking at where you are at in the moment, and then how can we modify that so you're still getting what the movement is supposed to be giving you, but it's geared towards you personally.
Wow, that's great. So the two of you together, and with a lot of input from him and his knowledge, came up with a program that worked for you. Did you do a whole program?
We didn't, we just, he would come up with the workouts of the
Okay.
day.
Okay.
That's what they call them, WOD,
Okay.
WOD, workout of the day. And I would look at him, and everybody we're training with are all athletes. They're all black belts and MMA fighters. And I mean, the biggest part for me was like showing up initially to say, I'm going to work out with these people.
Yeah, that'd be a little
And they
intimidating,
were
I would
all,
think.
it was, but they were lovely. I said,
Oh, that's
it
great.
started with this one woman that he had trained. Like there was like a group of them, maybe like 5 or 6 that he was training. And I said, if Deb's going to be there and it's just Deb, then I'll come,
Okay.
because she was always sweet to me whenever I'd go to pick him up for karate or things like that. And he convinced me to go one day, and it wasn't just Deb. There were the other guys
Ah.
there, but they were all equally wonderful. And
Yeah.
I remember when the first time I did my sit-ups and my push-ups on the floor, it was still on the mat, so it was soft, but we had loaned out the folded mat, so we didn't have that as an option. And so I just was like, all right, time to try this. And I happened to be sitting next to one of the guys that we train with, and he looked at me with like tears in his eyes, and he's like, when did you start being able to do this on the floor? Because they
Oh.
they kind of go along with you as you're training. And that's one of the really great things about CrossFit is the people that are in there doing it with you know what effort you are putting in because they're putting it in.
Wow. And they cheer on your accomplishments and your milestones. I mean, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because that could be really intimidating, and so you progress. You start out, then it sounds like in your house, like you were saying, on the sink, and
Yep.
and then you progressed till you went into a facility and started doing it there. So, how long when you started before you started noticing something from when you were doing them in your kitchen and pulling yourself up? How long before you And I assume you did it what, maybe once or twice a week to 3 times a week to
Yeah,
how?
we started with once a week,
Okay.
and then just like modifying the movements, we
Mm-hmm.
also modified the how frequent, how
Okay.
long, all those parts of it are modifiable for whatever works for you. And at the time, one of my friends didn't have lipedema, but her and her husband weren't very active and they wanted to be. So they started coming to our house and training with us. And one day the movement was to walk down the driveway.
Okay.
That was the length, the distance of the driveway. And you had to do that as part of one of the rounds of the movements. And it was really emotional. um, my husband and I were basically in tears walking down the driveway because for so long I hadn't been able to do that. And it
Oh,
was the first time I had done it
oh wow.
since my diagnosis.
Oh wow. What an accomplishment. I would have been in tears too. And
Yeah,
deserved every one of them. I mean, what a joy to be able to do that.
I would have
yeah.
wanted to file for divorce because I'm like, you're putting me through this. You contemplated it, Patty.
No, actually, just the exact opposite. I was so thankful that he was willing to work with me and wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, that's a hard thing to ask somebody to, you don't necessarily sign up for your significant other to end up with a chronic illness that almost makes them totally immobile. So it's a hard journey. And I
Oh,
think the support that we do have and that we do get is just so powerful.
yeah, and I'm sure it was he went every step with you, and that's so great. That is so great. So then you went and oh, okay. So far from it hurting,
Yeah.
from early on that exercise was going to hurt. Did you start noticing a reduction in the swelling? From the maybe fluid because you had the lympholipo. Um,
Lymphedema. Yep.
yes, yeah. So did
Well,
you? Go
yeah.
ahead.
Um, I did notice initially that we had to be very mindful of my energy. Like I'd get
Okay.
back from the workout and I would have to lay down and take a nap
Oh,
because
I
I
bet.
was moving so much of the fluid, which gets those toxins moving through your body.
Mm.
And so the fatigue level really elevated. And I would take like a 2 hour nap right after workout. I would just be so exhausted. And that was one of the things that we started to see is when I took shorter naps and then I didn't need a nap.
Oh,
And, that
okay.
was, multiple months. Like we started training in March of 2013. And I remember my daughter had signed up for a 5K. And my husband is not a runner. That's one of the things he dislikes the most.
Okay.
But he had signed up with her because she wanted to do it in honor of a child, one of the classmates who had passed away. And so there's
Oh.
an annual 5K that they did every year in honor of this young boy. And
Mm-hmm.
so we do everything as a family, and we drove over to the park, and the two of them were going to do the 5K. And as we're driving over, I'm in my brain, like, I'm just like, what am I going to do? Just sit there and wait? And that's going to be really uncomfortable. And I'm just not like, I'm kind of self stubborn, like, tell me you tell me I can't do something and
Yeah.
I'm going to do it, kind
Uh-huh.
of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, when do you think I'll be able to do a 5K? Like, it wasn't even on my radar to do a 5K.
Oh, yeah. No, no. Me and 5K. Mm-mm. No, 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 no. Mm-mm. It won't happen, I don't think, in my lifetime, but okay. You know,
Yep.
you go, girl, though. The fact that that didn't cross your mind, from where you had come to go and say, hey, I'm going to go do a 5K. When am I going to be able to do that? you know?
Yeah. And his response was, probably next year, if you keep training like you're doing, we'll be at a place where you can do the 5K with us. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think I'm going to start it and just, it was in our park and there were park benches like everywhere along the route. And I said, why don't I just see how far I can get and I'll sit down and wait for you if it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
He was like, glazed eyes over like, you want to do what?
Yeah.
And that's what I
Wow.
did. I the guns went off, and I'm like, don't wait for me, I'll just walk. And it was really challenging. And at one point, they like backtracked and came back to see how I was doing. And,
Yeah.
my back was just killing me. And he's like giving me stretching to do and reminding me of what we do when we're in workout and that happens. And so then I started to do that. He's like, if you need to take a break on one of the benches, if you can't move forward, then just wait. And if you can, then move to the next bench, or, however you can do it. And when I came around the corner and I saw that it was like every mile there'd be a marker, and I'd be like, oh my God, I did a mile. That was huge to me.
Yeah.
And when I rounded the corner and saw 3 miles, I knew I had 0.1 miles left. So I'm like, already at that point, I'm so emotional. Those two had gone and crossed the finish line, well before I had. And there was nobody else on the track. It was just me. And I didn't even sign up. So I really shouldn't be part of the event anyways. And I get around the corner, and my husband and my daughter just like run up to me, and we're all bawling. And he had asked the people who run the clock to hold it until I came through.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And so
amazing.
we all as a family kind of came through,
Oh,
with the
that's
timer
amazing.
and everything. And yeah, it was emotional and challenging. And that was like maybe 3 months from when I started to when I did that. And I mean, that was probably not the brightest thing to do,
Oh, but
but
what
it
tenacity you
definitely
have.
fueled me to, keep trying. And yeah,
Oh yeah, right at that first backache or whatever, I would admit like, oh yeah, where's the bench? And that would have been it. Yeah. Good for you.
yeah,
That's amazing. That is amazing. So I mean, you said 3 months or something after you started?
yep, yep. And I'm
Oh,
going to tell
wow.
you, the biggest impact was the emotional lift that I got, because it gave me something that I was doing. Like, I was taking action, and that was the biggest change within me, I think, which kept me going. That was the motivator. And I started to immediately have increased strength. My core strength is really what we kind of focused on. And that helps with your balance, it helps with
Mm-hmm.
your mobility, it helps with all of it. And I mean, it was like night and day. And I was doing modified workouts, and here I was feeling better. And I'm like, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I'm like, hey guys, I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm not getting worse, I'm getting better. So I don't
Yeah.
know why we're being told not to do this.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people were still scared. A lot of people were like, who are you to tell us, that we should be doing this when my doctor is literally telling me not to? And so I was in a couple of groups, and they were like, why don't you help us? Why don't you write like a weekly post, and we'll start trying to introduce it that way. And
Mm.
I finally was like, I think I'm annoying people. I don't want to do that, but I
Yeah,
want
but
to be able to share this information if
you're right.
other
Yeah.
people are interested. And I'm like, what do you think if I start a fitness-based group? And I had such great supporters in the groups that I was in. The Australia group was really where I got started. And then I found the sisters group, and everybody was like, I think it's a great idea. And I want to say it was maybe 20 of the people from the groups kind of said, I'll come join your group. And that's how it really got started.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Annoy them. Well, annoy away because that awareness needed to be out there because not doing it and not trying to come up with some way to try to help ourselves. Yeah. That's not an answer.
Yeah.
That's not an answer. So
Yeah.
you did that. And now I know that you have how many, 15,000 or something in your support group?
I think it's like 11 or 12,000. I
Yeah.
mean, it's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how old is it? 5 years or so? Or I
It
don't know.
just celebrated our 10-year anniversary
10
in
years.
July. Yep.
Great.
So
That's
I went from wanting to pay back Patricia Washburn, who did the blog.
mm-hmm.
That's how I first got started. I wrote a blog in July of, no, I think I wrote it a little earlier. No, I wrote in July of 2013. And then I think in August is when I started the group with the same name, Lipedema Fitness. And
And she addressed fitness in hers, you said?
no, it was
Oh,
just her personal story.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I don't think that the blog is around anymore. I had
Okay.
um, Yeah, I think it was at the time when we really didn't have a lot of Facebook groups, and there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was just like Facebook was just starting to be a thing, and there were Yahoo groups that I was part of for lymphedema.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it was really like OG,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so yeah,
I'm just
but
still kind of
yeah, we
dumbfounded that
10
when you,
years.
wow. And it all started with, I'm just still dumbfounded that you started out with CrossFit to begin with, number one,
I'm
because
still stuck on that. Like, what's your favorite CrossFit exercise? Do you like lifting up the tire, or do you like hitting it with the
Yep.
hammer?
I think
I
you have
like
done that,
tire
haven't you?
flips.
Yeah.
I like sledgehammer swings. Anything that makes me feel badass, I like.
Yes. Yeah. And you feel great for it. Wow. Wow, wow,
Yep.
wow. Cuz then you went and did did a, 5K. And
Yep.
then what about, did you do a biathlon, triathlon? What did you I mean, you Phil, you just be shocked. She just keeps going. I mean, it's one thing that's just so, it's one big daunting thing after another, and I'm just
I know.
amazed and
Yeah.
wow. Wow.
And
I would
Wow.
give
this,
myself challenges every year, like
this,
physical challenges.
yeah, this is.
Yeah, and see, look, and
And
then you're
these
doing
are
your
more
Peloton.
recent.
Yeah.
Yep, this is like more recent stuff. I've also have a walker now, which I had to since menopause. I've had a shift in my mobility and my walking again.
Okay.
And
Okay.
last year, or not last year, this year, in April of 2023, we went to the FDRS conference in Atlanta, and I knew I'm going to need assistance getting through all the airports and
Mm.
traveling.
Mhm.
And in the 2022 conference, one of my members, Nancy, had this really awesome stand up walker at the conference. I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, it, even with the walker, it was like, you know, you think of walkers and you think of kind of being hunched over and you're trying
Yeah.
to like maneuver like
Mhm.
this. I'm like, I am never going to use that. But
Yeah.
when I saw her, she was so upright. And I was like, that's fantastic. I thought that thing looked awesome. And so she came over and had taken a picture and let me post about it when I got back from the conference. And this year, when I was like, I was trying to decide if I was even going to go because I'm like, my mobility is not where I want it to be able to
Right.
walk through BWI Airport, Atlanta. If anybody has been to the Atlanta airport,
Yes.
God
Yeah.
bless you, because
Yeah.
that thing is insanity.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I would never have been able to do it without this walker. So
Is it
it
more the
was,
stand up walker? Is that what I'm
yep,
picturing?
yep,
Okay.
that's exactly.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Do you think more
And
places now are more accommodating um, for everybody, like with like their spaces or seats or anything like that?
I think it's getting there. I didn't have any issues with travel. I went through Southwest, and they have a customer of size policy that you can sign up for, and you end up buying two seats if you need extra width in your seat. And the really wonderful thing is you get to board ahead of time, and you can bring a companion with you. So, like when I would get to the airport and would get checked in, I would bring my walker right up to the gate, walk in. My daughter would
Okay.
usually accompany me. We'd get
Mhm.
to the seats that we wanted. And then when we get back from the flight, I ask for a refund and they reimburse me for the extra seat.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so they take the walker right from the where I get on the plane, and they put it in baggage, and you have to get make sure that when they're logging your luggage and they put the ticket on your walker, that you tell them you need it at all your stops so that they just get it to the next airport and not to your full destination. So that it's there when you get off the plane, you wait and they bring it out and then you have it to maneuver through the airport.
Wow. And that was the stand-up one that you were talking about too.
Yep.
That's,
Yep.
yeah, amazing, amazing. So when you went to this conference, so the FDRS conference, right?
Yep.
And you're worried, so you went and you presented there your
Um,
fitness.
in 2014 was the very first time we went to the FDRS conference, and it was the one in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and I both presented talking about how he was training me, what we were doing, what my experience was like. And then in 2022, they asked me to come back and do a presentation. And that one I was fine with. I didn't need the mobility at that time. But then this past year, it was such a longer travel. The one before was in Cleveland, and so we were able to drive to that one. But because it was going to be through all the airports, I was just concerned that I wouldn't be able to go that distance walking. So that's why we had to get it this year. And I didn't present this year. I was just an attendee, and it was lovely. I had
Oh,
lots of friends who were presenting.
I was going to say, because you've kind of taken this fitness, and done a lot of presentations, a lot of talks, and you're on panels, and I just think it's fantastic. So if we just want to touch base on some of the other ones that you're involved with, just for
Oh,
those
sure.
that, if they want to go out and, learn more about those, we can do that. And then I'm going to pick your brain on some of the, you gave us some great ideas on exercises, but let's talk about some other things that for lipedema patients, swimming we know is really good and stuff. So, but
Absolutely.
yeah, let's talk about all the great, your participation in all these panels and other things that you have kind of
Okay.
championed on this fitness avenue.
Okay. So I had a conversation with Brenda Viola, who was a representative of LymphaPress, and she had
Mm,
reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to do an interview with you and write an article for Learn." Um, and I was like, "Okay, I am all for spreading awareness in as many ways as possible." So I pretty much say yes to anybody who asks me to do anything. And
no, it's
I
great.
love the podcasts that you guys are doing. I love that people are doing podcasts because I think it reaches,
Yeah.
just a whole nother level
Mm-hmm.
of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I was like, sure. And she's like, we record them on Zoom and then we write from there. And I was like, that's fine. And then after we were done, she's like, the recording, the interview was so great. Do you mind if we share the video of our interview? And I'm like, not at all. Whoever it helps, let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And then she asked if I knew other people that she should interview, and I gave her some names of other people that, I found inspirational, and then she started talking with them, and then they were like, "We want to do like a monthly roundtable discussion." So it'll be like a Zoom call. You'll be a patient panel. It's called the Lipedema Patient Roundtable. It's held once a month. We just celebrated our third year doing it, and it's got, I think, 5 patients. And then we tend to have on, like Dr. Herbst was pretty regular.
Mm-hmm.
Linda Ann Kahn is very regular guest, and then we have special guests that come on as well. And it's amazing. Like we call it the best night in the lipedema community because it's not just the people who are on the panel, but the level of conversation that happens in the chat with the people who are listening and watching and being part of it and asking questions, their comments are fantastic. And it's such a community. It is, you get done, and it doesn't matter how bad, the past couple of weeks have been, you get off that call and you're hopeful, you're empowered, you're inspired to do other things and seek out other options. And it's just a wonderful avenue.
See, I think that's fantastic. And I'm like you. I'm kind of like, this is about education and awareness, and
Yes.
as many voices on the topic as you can have is
Yeah.
even better, because then you imagine your reach and imagine the awareness you can spread for that. So I am 100% a champion of any podcasts or roundtables or panels or
Yep.
anything that's going to increase this awareness. And like you said, the uplifting, the support. You don't feel like you're lone ranger, or that you're just doing this alone, and that there's no help out there. It
Right.
just is so uplifting. So I am with you 100% on that, for sure. That's why
Yeah.
we do this. Phil's telling me all the time, because it's like, wow, there's this information needs to get out there. We need to have as many voices as possible on it, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing.
100%.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
guys are doing a great job on. I don't have a lot of podcasting experience. I just started doing one with my sister, just
yeah.
personal stuff, not
Uh huh.
anything. I am amazed at what you guys do and the conversations, and I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and I got a good supporter here with Phil.
Yeah.
The man behind the magic curtain. But so yeah, so you did that, and then let's talk about, because I know you're doing like and we'll get on to like some of the exercises, but we saw that
Sure.
picture of you in the Peloton because don't you do like Peloton bike um, nights and you do all kinds of things that are really, really valuable and very, just worthwhile in getting this information out there. I just think I love your participation.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny. So after that 5K, I had talked about I do a challenge every year,
Mm-hmm.
and um, I did a mud run 5K obstacle course because
Really?
that was something that all the people that train with my husband, they did it every year.
Yeah.
And they were like, "You're doing it next year." And I'm like, "What?" I mean, this is like up a mountain and
Yeah.
over, cargo nets and kind of like crazy things.
Yeah.
And so I did it and it was brutal, but so empowering. And then the place started, they're like, that's our last one. Like for insurance reasons or whatever, they couldn't do it anymore. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
what am I going to do now? So I was like, oh, you know what? I want to find a 5K that's for lipedema. And I couldn't
yeah.
find one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because
And
I
I
can
was like,
imagine,
well,
because for those that have mobility issues, the idea of doing a 5K, you're just like, like I told you, I would have been on the bench long before you ever, thought about it. No way. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I
I
can
got
imagine.
frustrated. I couldn't find it. And I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll create it. And so I was in my group and I was like, I'm trying to come up with a way we can, spread awareness and for June, the month of spreading awareness, and why don't we make a 5K? And and then I thought, well, everybody likes to be in the pool. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make it as accessible for as many people as possible. Like I wanted people to say, well, I can't do the 5K, but maybe I could swim. And so I swimming and a 5K, let's do a triathlon.
Oh,
They really
Yeah.
thought I was nuts at that point.
That's some
But yeah,
creative, but
we
that's
just,
very creative thinking there. Yeah. And you
yeah,
get as many
and
people as you can.
yep. And it's now an international event. We just celebrated our 8th year in June, and we have people all over participating. And it's, as we call it, all or something. It's not all or nothing, it's all or something.
I
And
love
whether
that.
you have somebody who helps you with, a part of it, or you do a leg, they do a leg, and you get a third person to help, or, you take all month to do a proportion. Like some people just do the 5K, some people just want to do the swim, and some people want to do the bike. And not, you don't have to do all of them. You can take, all month of June to do whatever you are able to do. And this year, we really focused on how can we modify, because what happened and how I got started on Peloton was during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't do it locally. Like our YMCA locally host us every year. They shut down lanes in the pool for us. They reserve bikes for us. They reserve, treadmills for us to be able to do the whole event right in their facility.
Wow. That's
And
great.
during COVID, we couldn't do that. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how am I going to do this? So I was like, I'm going to buy a bike. And I found one. And finding a bike that can support your weight when you're somebody with lipedema is a
Mm-hmm.
challenge. And I
Mm-hmm.
found one on Amazon for a couple $100s.
Oh,
And
good.
we got that in. And because of the size and the shape of my legs, my husband had to extend my pedals out so it'd be more comfortable for me. And
Mm-hmm.
they were basically these little bolts that he added to the foot pedals. And that's how I did the at home version. We had a rower. So I did the rower for the swim. I
Okay.
had this, stationary bike that I used for the bike portion. And then I have to hold on. So usually by the end of it, I need to be on the treadmill so that I can hold on to the side of the treadmill while I'm doing the last leg. And that's always the hardest leg for me, is that last one, because I'm pretty tired and my legs are pretty spent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I don't have a treadmill at home. So what am I going to do? So I mowed the lawn with a push mower so I could hold on to something.
I love it. I love it.
And so that was my modification for my 5K that year. But I didn't have the Peloton app when I did that 5K, or when I did that triathlon. But my sister was a big Peloton person, and she's like, "Oh, you got to watch this video." And she had me watch one of their openings. They do like once a year, they have this big joint like ride through New York City, and you could
Mm,
see famous people, jumping on rides. And it was this big like celebration. I'm like, that looks like a lot of fun. I love music and all these spinning I'd never even taken a spinning class.
yeah.
It's music
Mm.
played and you pedal along to whatever song is on. And so we started, I found out that I could use this stationary bike I got off Amazon, and I could pay $12.99 a month and get the Peloton app and still be able to use all the videos. And it's not even just cycling. They've got a treadmill, they got a walking one, they got strength training, they've got yoga, they've got meditation classes,
Wow,
all
I
for
didn't
this
know that.
$12.99 a month.
I had no
Yeah,
idea.
it's
I just had this impression that it was really expensive, like the bike's expensive, and then you get that the subscription or whatever to do the music and the rides and stuff with it. So I didn't know that.
right. Yeah,
That's really good information.
yeah. And so I started doing the bike and started riding, and I loved it. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. And then my sister she got diagnosed with cancer, and I had been at her house over the triathlon one year and used her Peloton. And that's the picture that you have. That's me on her Peloton during a triathlon in that
Okay.
on the right
Okay.
hand side. Yeah. And I wanted this post right here that you
300
guys have up.
Peloton rides. Yeah.
Yeah. It was trying to show that I'm the person who needed the walker to get to FDR's conference, but I'm also the person who's on the Peloton bike who just got 300 rides. You know, it can look so different for each of us. And that's really where you start. What do I like to do? What can I physically do right now? What can I afford to do? Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can afford to pay $12.99 for a Peloton app.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's so personal. We can gear it towards wherever you're at. And that's how you come up with things that just help you move your body more,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
moving, everybody needs to move. And finding ways that motivate you to do that are going to work better if it's geared towards things that you're able to do and that
Yes.
you like to do.
Right, right. Like you said, everybody should move regardless. But if you have lipedema, then definitely finding the ones that are going to allow you to go and do some movement that you can do and that doesn't kind of, um, take a mental toll on you as well as physical. I'm
Correct.
like you, the fatigue on anything, what you would think would be simple for someone with lipedema, the fatigue is kind of just be unbelievable. And then, like I said, you got
And
to lay down for a while. So imagine exercising and for any length of time and having to not take a nap or being able to, like you said, now you have energy and you're able to do it. So
And the biggest takeaway from that, what you're saying, is don't beat yourself up if you need a nap.
that's right. Yeah.
You got to give yourself
Yep.
grace that you are living with lipedema, and there's extra weight that you're having to carry. There's
Mm-hmm.
extra fatigue that you're having to deal with. There's pain that you're having to try to
Mm-hmm.
work through.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do any of the stuff that I do without wearing compression. Compression
Mm-hmm.
supports me. It helps me not to retain the fluid like I can if I'm sitting around the house and there's just a day where I'm like, all right, I just can't do compression right now, and I don't have my compression on. I've got bare legs. Within a matter of minutes, I feel my legs swelling.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't
So
that
for
awful? You could
me,
just feel
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I'm just
so
glad that wow, you have really done some great stuff. And I'm just inspired by your motivation and your desire. And then just like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do this. I mean, shoot, 3 months in and you're doing a 5K. Holy moly. You know, so
stubborn.
when you've been doing all of this, what has, and I realize that this is relative to where a woman is in her disease and what she's able to do and what she isn't able to do. Is her mobility affected? Is it not? What are there exercises that work best for you? Obviously, you did the CrossFit and then you're doing the biking. Are those the ones that work best for you?
Yeah, for me, definitely strength training saved my life.
Okay.
I'm not exaggerating in that.
Okay.
Being able to get stronger in my core is going to transfer to everyday life. Being able to get upstairs, being able to get out of a chair, all that stuff really comes from having core strength. And having upper body strength helps you to move your body around, turning over in bed, having an awareness of your body and helping to get it stronger, I think is really key. And that's going to look different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to say you got to do CrossFit. CrossFit's going to save your life. Nope. I know it's not for everybody. It works for
Go
me.
do a couple tire flips. That'll be great for you.
You would not believe what that does to you emotionally. Like
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
walk away like
Yeah.
you're all proud.
I'm just thinking there is no way when I see those big old tractor tires or whatever they are that I could think about flipping one. Again, that's just amazing that, and I think it's fantastic that your motivation led you there, and you're like, nope, nope, you're not getting the best of me. And I
That's
think
right.
that's exactly the mindset that each woman should have as she tackles whatever fitness program, routine, plan works for her. You know,
Right.
for you, like you said, your strength training and your biking. I know swimming is one that we always hear when it comes to
Yep.
lymphedema because of yep, yep.
All right,
Um,
this picture is this was this June as part of the triathlon. I
okay,
went to the triathlon at the YMCA, and as we're almost there, I'm realizing because I'm dressed in my swimming attire because swimming is the first leg. I'm realizing I didn't pack my compression to wear after the
oh,
swim. And I'm
okay,
like, what am I going to do? Like, I've got people with me, like my training mates all join me in the triathlon. They're
yeah,
such great supporters. And
yeah,
so I'm like, you know what? Just like we tell everybody, do the thing in front of you. Do the one task that's right in front of you. Focus on that instead
mm-hmm,
of this great big, I've got to do this whole triathlon. Swimming is first. Let's get to the pool.
yeah.
As we walked in, it was like an epiphany. This sign was there that said water walking. And I'm like, I'm going to walk the 5K right here in the pool.
Oh,
So
that's great. That's fantastic.
my
Yeah.
my two friends who joined me in the pool were doing their laps. And then when they got done, I was walking while they were doing their laps. It took them about a half an hour. And then I stopped walking, did my laps, which took me about a half an hour. And then I went back to finish off the 5K in the pool. And like we have my husband, he is not a big swimmer, so he uses the rowing machine as his modification for the swim. And
Okay.
we have two other people who also do that. And they transition pretty quickly from each leg. Whereas me, I've got to then go take a shower, get all the chemicals from the pool off my body, get dried off, get relotioned, get dry compression on. So it takes me like changing is a leg of the triathlon for me.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, I
longer
can
than the
see that.
swim for me.
Mm-hmm. I could see that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So by the time I got done with the swim and the 5K in the pool, water walking, they were all done the whole triathlon after I got done my shower. So my third leg was getting changed and all of that. And then when I said, you know what, I'm not going to make you guys stay for another hour while I have to do the bike and I don't have my compression. So I'm going to
Mm.
go home and I'm going to take a Peloton ride for 60 minutes or take two 30-minute rides. And that's what I did. And it worked out beautifully. Like, I think I'm going to do that every year. It was perfect timing. And the walking in the pool was fantastic. It felt like I didn't have the level of recovery that I usually have after the triathlon
Mm.
because it's so supportive. The water acts like natural compression. So, if you're in 3 feet of water, it's like 70 milligrams of mercury of compression. And as you're moving, you're also getting the fluid out. So it's so healing. And I
Oh, it sure
highly
is. Yeah.
recommend that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And ladies out there, whatever works for you, and if it's swimming or whatever combination, do that. I did want to, because one I see on the support groups a lot, and this is a device actually, but didn't know, are you familiar with the vibration plates? Have you ever used them? Have they worked for you? And again, this is all tailored to each individual lady, but just wondered if you had experience with that.
Yeah, at the 2014 FDRS conference, one of the vendors was a man who had a vibration plate there that you could try out. And it was like a big professional style that you'd see in a gym. And
Okay.
it happened to be right in the area where the conference was going on. So like you'd have like a little break and you could go talk to the vendors. And I went over and I hopped on this thing to try it out. But your behind is facing everybody else. And so
I've tried one too, so I
everybody
can,
saw me trying it
yeah,
out.
yeah, I can absolutely picture that. Yeah, I've tried it. Yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you
Yep.
mean. Yeah.
But I went home and they offered you a discount as members of that conference. And it was a big, huge investment. And my sister-in-law and my husband and I all discussed it. And we thought, you know what, it's worth it.
Hmm.
And I bought it in 2014 and I use it every single morning.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I think they
yep.
feel really good in general, much less
Yeah.
the, how it helps with the, from a lipedema standpoint or any sort of maybe getting some fluid moving or anything like that. So, yeah, so
Yep.
every single
Big
morning, that's
fan.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
one of the longest standing things that I've done as maintaining, with the compression being the first, you know.
mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I've done it ever since.
Now, has your treatment pretty much consisted of just the exercise? I'm not sure if you've had surgery or not. I'm as a
I have
final
not had
stage.
surgery.
Okay. Um, no, and that's great. And that's, to each woman, it's just that I know that that's kind of the way to get rid of the tissue, but it's to get rid of the symptoms up until then, which is where all this exercise and the different avenues compression um,
Yeah.
that you can use to try to do that. Um, so let's, and I want to hit you sent us some pictures, and I know we've been showing them some, but I want to hit the other pictures, Phil, if you've got those of some things that you were doing that work for you. Um, the yoga strap. Yeah. So we talked about vibration plates. So here's another yoga and yoga straps. So how's that work for you?
Yep. So this post was trying to show how you can use tools and
Mm-hmm.
props,
Mm-hmm.
modifiers like a yoga strap. Yoga
Mm-hmm.
straps are used, to help you get into positions in yoga that you maybe can't get into immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you kind of build up to that, but I use it also to help me elevate my legs. We know elevating our legs up over our heads are supposed to be great, and people talk
Yes.
about putting their legs up on like the headboard,
Yep.
or doing, they call it the dead cat, which is a horrible name, but getting those legs elevated and the
Mm-hmm.
arms elevated and kind of shaking to help move the lymphatics.
Mm-hmm.
This was a recent post I did. I bring my yoga strap with me to the park. We train in the summer and the warmer months in the park. And so we lay out our yoga mats. And when I'm getting ready for the warm up, I do these things, stretching and agilities and mobility and different types of movements, because I'm older and I've now have gone through menopause and I've
Mm-hmm.
had this change with my mobility now again, so that I have to do other things to help me get ready to be able to do some of the workouts. And so this yoga strap was very helpful in raising my leg up, helping me to move it, to hold it up longer. And it was really about finding other things that can help you. Like if you go to do, like, I can't put my legs up over my head, so I guess I can't do that thing. Well, I try to
Right.
find ways that we can modify that, and how can we help ourselves be able to lift our limbs that are quite heavy. And so this was one of the ways that I do that. But I like lymphatic yoga is something that I've done, and it's about when you have MLD and manual lymphatic drainage. They talk about where the cluster of nodes are that you want to try to drain. So
Right.
when you think about the yoga movements that you're doing, that hit those areas, which are, your armpits and behind your legs and your
Mm-hmm.
hips, your
Mm-hmm.
inguinal area, your abdomen. All those areas are areas in like the yoga movements that you want to try to have. And there are wonderful videos on YouTube that are free. You can look up lymphatic yoga and find great videos that show you different movements. I'm a big fan of the cat and the cow stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And you can
Yes.
do that modified, so you don't have to be on the floor on your hands and knees. You can do it standing, like with your hands on like a picnic bench. Or I do those with my hands on my vibration plate in the morning. That's part of, I do, the vibration. I do my
Mm-hmm.
lymphatic stretching. I do, you know, um, pumping. You can do all types of different, whatever you try that works for you is kind of where I kind of lead people to.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because as long as you're doing some sort of movement, you don't have to be doing, like we're saying, doing tire flipping, but you can go and do some sort of movement or even CrossFit. But like, and if you do, start
Yeah.
slow, like you said, work on the core.
Yes.
And then if swimming is your thing, do some swimming, vibration, yoga, just whatever you're able to do to help you, number one, maybe help with the swelling and just increase your energy and just
Yes.
the mental side of it.
Yes.
That's
So huge.
huge. Yeah. So, and what else? And Phil, I don't want to miss any of the things that she had in her pictures because I thought that was all great stuff. And then Patty, if there's anything else that we want to make sure that we include too, just for suggestions for folks, if there's anything else we want to include.
Absolutely. I try to make it fun, because I think if you can motivate people in different ways. So for me, music is a big deal. I
Mm-hmm.
am a big, huge fan of music, and that's part of why I like the Peloton so much, is because I can ride along to my favorite songs.
All right,
And
Yeah.
what
I
is it?
want to
What is
say,
it? What's your favorite Peloton song?
oh, you're going to put me on the spot. I like the really heavy ones, like, um, let the bodies hit the floor.
You drowning pool?
Yes.
You're in a drowning pool? No way.
Yeah, I like so much music. I gotta say, the only thing I don't love is country.
Okay.
I don't want to offend anybody, but that's not my jam.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I am a big fan of classic rock. Those are tend to be my favorite rides. And Peloton has this series called the Artist Series, and it will pick a specific artist, and that whole 30-minute ride is to their music. And so when I found those, I started doing a weekly ride with that. And
Yeah.
I had gone to, I think it was for my 100th Peloton ride. I became a century rider like just before my 1 year mark of being signed up with Peloton. And my husband was so sweet. He set his bike up. He's an outdoor bicyclist, huge bicyclist. He set it up in the living room. So when I came in to get my bike and start my ride, he was all set up to ride with me on my 100th ride. My
Oh,
sister,
that's great.
so sweet. My sister was in New Jersey. She was signed up to do the ride with me. And one of my friends from my prior position, we had hooked up at a friend's wedding and we got talking about Peloton. She was in on her bike. And so we all were like signed up to take this 100th ride with me. And so I started to say to them, do you guys want to do like a weekly ride? And so we started a what was it? Friday at 6 p.m. We pick a song, we pick a ride that we do, and we put out the word that we're doing this ride. And we have members that now join us on the ride. And like this week, we just did Shaka Khan, and what a fantastic ride that was.
Wow.
So yeah, lots of fun. And it's fun because you get excited about it. It's almost like when you were in college and you got excited for Friday night when you go to the club.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about, oh, it's going to be Shaka Khan this week. And we do silly post ride pictures. I'll, do some crazy filter on it to make it fun, and we laugh about it. And it's just a lot of, you know, I like that. I like to make things fun and have different ideas, and getting members to say, oh, I want to do that with you. That's like the best.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And it's just that for me it's if there's a distraction is so that you're not thinking like, okay,
Yes.
I've got another 15 minutes to go. Oh, am I ever going to make it? I love that
Yeah,
because
we're
it just keeps you.
high-fiving each other
Yeah.
on, because you can high-five each other on the app. And so it's just fun. And to see their post-ride selfies, that's a big thing with people after they do an event. They do like a post-ride selfie, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back with like this funky version with filters on it, and they're like, "What did you do?"
Oh, I think that's great. I think that's great.
Yeah,
And that is, it sounds like a lot of fun. And it's something that you need to do. It helps you. And again, it's that emotional, mental side of it that, you
yeah,
know, that just it's uplifting and you feel supported and you've got these great folks on the ride with you. I mean, I just think that's fantastic. And
yeah.
and your creative ways that you have done this, from like you said, the 5K to the triathlon to this Peloton bike ride. What creative avenues to do something that is helping you physically and mentally. I just think it's fantastic. Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, I felt very alone when I first got diagnosed,
I bet.
because we didn't have social media and we didn't have all that stuff. And I never want anybody to feel that way. You know, I always try to find, like, how can I include as many people as possible? If you want to do it, but you feel like you can't, reach out to me and ask me if there's, ideas I have to help modify. I would love to. This year we had some great interviews with people like Molly came on and talked about HydroWorks.
Oh,
Her therapy office has a water treadmill, and we
oh,
did
Oh,
a whole video. She came on, like, myself and another stage 3 who use fitness, Crystal from CFit Revolution.
mm-hmm,
We do a monthly live on Instagram as well, and it'll just be us talking. Sometimes we have, Dr. Herbst come on, or
mm-hmm,
a patient will come on, and Molly
mm-hmm.
came on to talk about her modifications for the triathlon because she couldn't walk. And so she found this therapy office that had this HydroWorks aqua treadmill, and the place was fantastic. The owner came on with her, and they walked through showing us how to use this HydroWorks so that she could do that part of the triathlon right there in the therapy office, and it was phenomenal. So I love when people are like, "Hey, what can I do?" Or they like, "Hey, would this count?" I'm like, everything counts. Whatever you want
There
to
you
do,
go.
it counts.
Everything counts. I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, should be so embarrassed because there's no excuse for me not to get out there and do that if she's has an underwater treadmill. It's kind of like, yeah, no excuses anymore. But I like what you said. Everything counts. So modify,
Yeah.
modify, modify to where you are,
Yep.
and start small and just
Yes.
keep at
Ease
it.
in.
Yeah, ease in. Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect. So Phil, anything else on those pictures? I know that there was a balancing one that you had. Do you happen to have that one, Phil?
yeah.
Okay.
It's hold on. Let me go back.
And then was that part of the CrossFit where you were doing? Was that
Yeah, I put this one up here earlier for.
Yep. This was actually part of the second FDRS conference presentation. It was about becoming your own best resource with living with lipedema, and
okay?
how it can look different. So it kind of became a circus theme. So it went from being the strong man and what that meant by being physically as well as emotionally. And then there was a juggler component where we juggle self-care items because there's so many for us to have to do. But there's also regular self-care items like people taking a bubble bath or painting your nails
Yeah.
or
Uh huh.
reading a book. And it was about the balance of the physical and the emotional sides. And so I happened to had that picture of me in the bottom of my squat, and I'm like, oh, that's a perfect picture to show balance and how important it is to not just focus on the physical but also on the emotional side.
Oh no, that is so 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 true because that emotional side takes a real beating with this disease. But I
Yeah.
love the idea. Could you have imagined when you started your CrossFit ever being able to squat down like that? Could you imagine? Yeah.
Well, I used to be a really good squatter. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that was something, like, I also have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. So
Oh,
I've kind
okay.
of come to understand
Okay.
why I'm so flexible.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I used to be at the bottom of my squat looking for the best shoes on the sale. They always put them down at the bottom. And so I'd
Okay.
be squatted down, like going through all the a big shoe girl, going through
What?
all the
That's some
shoes.
motivation, though. I like that. That's some good motivation there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did lose that. I lost that
Yep.
when I stopped. being active.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've really been interested in now is I've taken a course on fascia. And when I
Okay.
heard that lipedema went from being called a painful fat disorder to being called a loose connective tissue disorder,
Mm.
my brain went, what's connective tissue? Like, I need to know more about connective tissue. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I found fascia. And that's a whole nother podcast. But
Yeah.
basically, it's about tuning into yourself, and it helps you to look at what you're doing, not just emotionally or physically, but how connected they both are. Like, the information goes from brain to body, from body to brain, and having those gut reactions, that's all connected. It's all part of this wonderful system.
Wow. I just think that's fascinating too. But you're right. Trying to discuss the type of disorder it is, that is a whole nother podcast because it
Yeah.
does keep changing as information changes and becomes more
Yep.
available. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I've just so enjoyed this whole conversation.
Me
And I
too.
hope that the ladies out there, take some of those tips that you've given. Is there anything that we may have missed that you want to part with, or did we cover most of what your best tips, your best practice for us?
Yeah, I would say you're not alone.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling a certain way about movement or self care or having a condition like this, I guarantee you there's other people that are having those same feelings. And if you can, look at other stories, share your story, you never know who's going to hear your story and relate to it and get that information. And you now have this amazing community. It's such a supportive community. Everybody is out there trying to help you. So you're not alone on this journey. And when it feels overwhelming, it's okay to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies, you look at all those creative ways that Pattie has come up with trying to get some movement in. Take her tips and then just keep on swimming, biking, CrossFit, tire flipping, whatever it is that works for you. Modify, start
Yeah.
slow. Don't beat yourself up. Don't, that you think you should be able to do more. Just be easy, be graceful with yourself. But
Yeah.
Pattie, thank you so much. And you are at the Lipedema Fitness Facebook support group for those that
Yes.
if they aren't a member, join. It has fantastic information, fantastic activities that she does with her bike rides and other things that she does. And I just think it would be a great resource for you.
Thank you so
So,
much for having me. You guys have been wonderful.
oh no, thank you. And Phil, do you have anything you want to?
So I think I figured out something. We need to get the podcast on Peloton. I mean,
Yeah.
if it plays music, then man, we need to be able to get the podcast streaming on there because that would be great. But guys, if you want, you can visit our website at lipedemalink.com. All the episodes are there. You can read the blogs about every episode. You can also click that off. You can also register to be a guest on our show. This has been a tremendous episode, and Pattie, thank you so much for joining us. And guys, we will catch you later. See
Thank you.
ya.
Bye bye.